Yes. Hello, Anando. Nice to see
Hello,
you.
hello, Divyam.
Yes. And in about 2 weeks or the half of June, you are going to give a group again in the Elm Institute, which we like very much. And it's called Working with Dissociation in Body, Energy, and Psyche. And I was wondering, is there a difference for you? I mean, can we dissociate in the body without dissociating in the energy? Or what is your view on this?
Yeah, I especially added the word energy because often we have a misconception maybe about energy, that we feel that if I'm uplifted, that this is a spiritual state. So we can confuse it with something that we want to even achieve. And when I talk about this, I'm including myself. I'm always introducing the training with I'm an expert on the field of dissociation because I myself was a master in dissociating, even leaving the body, uh, and thinking that this was a great thing to do, and also having the idea that it is something spiritual. And for me, it was very important to get a turning point there, and that happened through the work with Eastern martial arts techniques that are centering and grounding and about connecting with your strengths, rooted in the hara. So, and there I realized, when we dissociate, we disconnect from who we are in that moment. And the word energy is important because a lot of people who are rooted in the spiritual life are, let's say, have a relationship to it. Yeah. So the point is to see that when you in your strength, and then you open to space and to energy, then you feel yourself as a whole. But if you disconnect from your body and from you, what is making you in this very moment, that is creates a split. And that split is very unhealthy because it keeps us in a state of confusion. And in that confusion, we don't really feel clearly what is our truth in that moment and what we want to do and what we don't want to do. So the hara center in the belly is called also the seat of will. And if we are disconnected from the roots, from the grounding, we are also disconnected from our will and knowing what we want. And that is something that is happening in daily life for many people without them really noticing that they're cut off from their strengths and from their power. That's why I included the word energy in it. To take that into account also. And psyche, I mean, has to do with the identification also of what we think who we are. If and the psychological patterns that we have developed in our childhood, and that is closely connected to the energetic phenomenon that we maybe notice. So that if, for instance, I have been hurt for expressing my will, I learn how to go into adaptation and into suppressing my willpower and space out instead. That's what I had to do. It's safe. So it's always good to understand we develop those strategies in order to be safe. So dissociation is often connected to the state of helplessness also. That in that moment, in our instinct, we feel I cannot do anything about this situation, so I fade out. I dissociate from the experience of this moment. So it often happens when we are being overwhelmed by something from the outside. And out of that can develop a habit that later, when we are grown up, it really is a disturbance in us taking our place in the world, but also in the self-regulation of our nervous system and our body. So in a way, it is an unhealthy habit, you could say, almost like a drug addict. You have to get out of it slowly, bit by bit. No, don't do it all at once. Yes, so it is important to know that grounding, for instance, is a very powerful tool. So when you use it with a client, you have to really put it into the right proportion and find the right timing that is really important for the client.
Because is there something like healthy dissociation?
Healthy dissociation, it is let's say like that. So when you have a feeling, let's say fear, right? So, and you know you have fear, then it is okay to take a distance to it. Yeah, so if you go into being a more witness and noticing, aha, there's fear in my body and I feel a constriction in my neck and my eyes are going, oh, yes. So, and my back is getting tense, yeah, or getting cold, whatever. So, and you can watch it, but stay connected with the experience, then you could say it's a bit of a healthy distancing. Yes. And so that is one way where I would say this is a healthy way of the distancing. Then I don't want to call it dissociation anymore. Or sometimes when you have a client that is contains a lot of trauma in the body, it is first helpful to find a safe place in the fantasy world. Yes, that's why sometimes the whole thing about angels is very helpful, because it connects you to something good that maybe you cannot even find or can trust enough that normal people have that such a goodness also. Yes, so that finding that kind of safe harbor which is outside the body is sometimes in the beginning the only place that can be found where the client can feel safe. No? Yes.
Yeah, that's a beautiful voorbeeld. Because can you say something about shame around dissociation?
I think the shame arises because in that moment we feel helpless. Yeah. And sometimes it can go that far, or it takes so long that it can be a dissociation of 2 or 3 days if we have been heavily triggered. Yes. And because it takes so long and maybe you don't know how to deal with it, that feeling of helplessness continues and you don't know how to get out of it. So it's very important to have some tools for the client that they can apply in their daily life. Also in the borderline, in the therapy for borderliners, there you have this kind of toolkit, and it's good to have a whole lot in stock so that the clients can find their own favorite tools. And if that one doesn't work, maybe take the next one. Yeah, or it's also important as a therapist to know what am I going to do with somebody who's dissociated in my session. How can I help them to get out of it and ground them again? And yes, I find it very important to you look at the whole broad appearance of dissociation, that you can deal and help support people who have a kind of dissociation that where they are connected disconnected from certain feelings or from certain impulses. So to look there specifically, what is actually so difficult for me to own, where I start spacing out when it comes to anger, maybe, or fear, or wanting to put a limitation. So to look in each different situation, what is the tool that is helpful for especially fear or anger or feeling your willpower. Yeah. And then also I like to look at the different times in the development where it can happen. Sometimes dissociation happens before birth even. So I have one exercise to do with a client where, you know, you connect the navel and the belly button to enter more deeper into the body. You know?
It all sounds very interesting. Yes, well, Anando,
Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to see you the June 16, I think, and then we will dive deep into your dissociation work. Okay,
Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to coming.
we see you soon.